You are listening to The Overwhelmed Brain. Today's episode is brought to you by a very important podcast I want you to tune into. It's a show called A Better Night's Sleep Podcast. Ever wonder how to beat insomnia? You want to know how to help your partner or your kids sleep so that you can too? Open your podcast player and search for A Better Night's Sleep Podcast to answer those questions now. Are you annoyed by affirmations? Are you tired of that same old, rehashed personal growth advice that all seems to boil down to, think positively and all your problems will go away? If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then I want you to get ready. The Overwhelmed Brain is here to help you create the life you want now. Hello and welcome to the Overwhelmed Brain. I am your host, personal empowerment coach, Paul Coliani. I am here to help you increase your emotional intelligence, strengthen your self-worth and self-esteem, and empower you so that you can make decisions that are right for you. Everything I talk about on this show is my personal opinion and is meant for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult a medical or psychological professional before making any changes that could affect your physical or mental health. All right, we got a tough one. I got a tough email from someone who's made life decisions that brought her to a space of now she feels like she has no choice but to live life as it has been handed to her, or as the results of her choices bringing her to this space where she feels like she has no choice anymore. I mean, this can happen. The results of our choices over life, we get to a certain age, and now we have to live with those choices until we're dead. I mean, that's what it can feel like. Hate to be so blunt, but that is exactly probably what this woman feels like. I'm going to go ahead and read this email, and for those who've never heard the show, this is what I do. I read emails. I get a lot of questions, usually about relationships, a lot about life issues and other things that come up, some strange things that maybe not all of us deal with. But every now and then you're going to hear something that you totally resonate with, and maybe my insights and opinions will help you too. So let's get to this very tough email. It's funny, I think I have 2 tough emails today, and see where we go with it. All right, I'm going to call this person who wrote in Sandy. Sandy writes, Paul, I'm writing to you because the last 2 programs I heard had me crying. I'm in my 60s and I'm still thinking about the mistake I made not marrying my first college love. He married someone else 6 months after we broke up. I had an extremely abusive mother back then who told me if I married him, I could no longer come into her house. My mother had a strange vibe over me. It was as if I couldn't even think without her. When I look back, she wouldn't even allow me to have friends come over. And in college, when I finally did have friends over, I didn't know how to treat them around home. She made my life miserable. I did date another guy, and he couldn't come to the house either. All this time, I was thinking it was something about me. I would lose jobs because I had a terrible temper. I had one friend who hung around me, but she's since died. In fact, she died the same year my mom did. I cried for her more than my mom. My life has been a series of breakdowns, making friends with the wrong kind of people, including those from my mother's family who are just like her, from mild to manic, and my daughter, who my mom made sure during one of my breakdowns to turn against me. I was never good with money, and that's an important trait in our family. My daughter treats me just like my mom treated me, and I'm on disability with very little money, so if I do anything that bothers her, which is a lot of things, she refuses to help me. And she helps me a lot. Sometimes I think that one mistake, not marrying my boyfriend, cost me so much. But he was also a philanderer, and I was primarily codependent on him. I had to look up philanderer. I didn't know what that was. And apparently it's someone who initiates casual sex with other women, or I'm assuming that's what he was doing. So I hope I got that right. I still wouldn't have had a life, but I think I would have been better off than I am now. I have no friends. I'm always sad. and I long to relive that one day I said no so I can change it to a yes. Maybe I'm thinking my life would have been different. But what I've heard from friends of the girl he married is that his philandering got worse. My dad was a good dad, but he was also a philanderer. I didn't want to marry one because I already felt bad about myself, and that would have done me in. Or would it have? All right, that was it. There wasn't necessarily a question except maybe that one at the end, but I'm going to call you Sandy. Sandy, thank you so much for sharing that. And let me tell you this. This is one of those, like I said before I read your message, this is one of those things where the summation of all of our choices in life lead us to the path that we end up on. And then what can we do about it now that we are dependent on other people and systems like your fixed income? What can we do about that when we get into that space? And let me tell you, there's not any easy answer for this. I mean, I have some insights. Yes, I have some ideas. But this is an important lesson. Yes, you're going to be a lesson for others here. I'm sorry. But at the same time, I want everyone to hear this, that every step you take in life, every decision you make in life, everything you do compounds and leads you to where you end up. And where you end up can be an empowering place, where you honored yourself, where you got rid of toxic people in your life, where you stood up for yourself, where you protected yourself, which is similar to honoring yourself, depending on the situation. Everything you do leads you to the path that you end up on, which leads you to the destination where you live, for example, like Sandy, the rest of your life from there. Now, I know I make that sound dismal, Sandy. I don't mean to, but I do want this to be an important lesson for everyone listening, that the people in your life today, the ones that are really toxic, if you haven't gotten them out of your life, or if you haven't figured out a way to deal with them effectively, where you are honoring yourself, where they are not toxic to you anymore, or you haven't set up your life in a way where you just can avoid these toxic people, then you will end up in a place where someone else controls your happiness. I don't want someone else to control your happiness. I want you to control your happiness. I at least want you to have the dial that you can turn it up and down instead of someone else having access to the controls. You have an opportunity today to make decisions that, like I say all the time, to make decisions that are right for you, not the ones that disempower you, not the ones where the wrong people have control of that happiness dial. You need to take control of that happiness dial. It sounds a little silly, the happiness dial, but you get what I'm saying. The idea that someone else in your life can cause you to make decisions that keep you in an unhappy place, that keep you withholding what you really want to say and really want to do in your life. Sandy went through this toxic relationship with her mom, and of course, she didn't know any better. Sandy, I know you didn't know any better, and I want to start with this one point. You don't always know better. You don't always know what to do. You don't always have the tools, the resources, shows like this, the right book, the right people, the right therapist, the right coach. They don't always show up at the right time. And sometimes they show up really late, like too late. And then you're wondering, well, what can I do now? So Sandy, yes, you are an example and a lesson for others. That doesn't feel good, I know. I have been an example and a lesson for others because of my dysfunctional past, because of the relationships that I ruined, because of the marriage that I thought would last for the rest of my life, didn't, because I screwed up. But I didn't know any better. Sandy, you didn't know any better. You came to that decision where you could have gotten married to this guy, and to tell you the truth, it sounds like you had an abused mind. If you've never heard me talk about an abused mind, it's that one that tolerates bad behavior, because you were brought up to tolerate bad behavior. if you're with someone and they yell at you and they've never yelled at you before, you might go, oh, I can't believe that person yelled at me. That's really awful. But, it was bad, but I think I can survive this. And then in a few months, they slap you across the face, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they slapped me across the face. That's awful. Then you find a way to justify that behavior and go, well, he or she had a bad day, or maybe I said something that really ticked them off, and, maybe I deserved it. That's your abused mind talking. When you start to justify bad behavior, that means your abused mind is taking over. Not your deeper, unconscious mind that wants to take care of your system, that wants to keep you healthy and happy. It's the abused mind that was programmed from birth sometimes to tolerate bad behavior, be resilient to it. I'm kind of sick of the advice when people say, you need to become resilient. You need to become tolerant. I get sick of that advice because it doesn't always help. I understand becoming resilient when you're working out, and you want to do 100 push-ups and you need to be tolerant of the pain and you want to push through it. That makes sense. That works. But don't be tolerant of bad behavior. I told a story a few months back, might have been a year ago, that a sales clerk, put an upcharge on my final cost for this. I think it was a microphone or something that I was buying. And I noticed it, and he had slipped it in there. It was like an extended warranty or something. And I got the idea that he was trying to fast talk me anyway. And I had this idea about him before. And I felt like, before I learned all this personal boundary stuff many years ago, I would have been the person that said, oh my God, there's an extra charge on there. What should I say? What should I do? That's not right. I should mention something like, oh, hey, there's an extra charge. Could you take it off? I'd come from this very skittish place. But now, I felt all the signals. I didn't justify the red flags. I took them seriously. And I said, hey, that's not right. You should not put that extra charge on there. That's a little unethical, and I'm not very happy about that. I mean, when I heard those words come out of me, almost word for word, he was like, oh, sorry. And he would just look surprised, like no one had ever stood up to him like that. And, I was on to his game. I didn't like his game. He tried to pull that on me several times in the past, and this time I caught it, and I wasn't having it. And I didn't care. This is where I went with it. I didn't care about the repercussions. I didn't care if he got mad at me. I didn't care if he hit me. I didn't care if he kicked me out of the store. Not that any of that would happen or should happen, but this is where you go when you want to honor yourself and not be focused on what the consequences are, because honoring yourself is the primary thing to do. Valuing yourself, like this midweek episode that Matthew and I had recently. Valuing yourself so that every decision you make, every behavior you have is in alignment with valuing yourself. So my point is that when you are with people where you don't value yourself, where you honor them dishonoring you, which is what it comes down to, then those people control your happiness dial. I don't think I like that term, but I'm going to use it anyway. But it's seriously, these people can control the level of comfort and peace and happiness in your life if you don't start doing something about it right away. It doesn't have to be like immediately, but start making a plan. Start looking at how old you are right now and where you're going to be in life in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Are you going to be under their thumb, under their control? And where you are, Sandy, that's what you feel like. Now that you're on this fixed income and you have a daughter that has turned against you because your mom, convinced her or whatever. And it sounds like, Sandy, that you never really got out of that abused mind, or at least you're starting to learn about it more and more, or have started to learn about it more and more recently, but it was too little too late where you feel like you are today. It doesn't mean that everything is terrible now. It does feel like that. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have no options. I want you to actually find an episode I did called, let me look it up. Hang on a second. No options. What's it called? Actually, there's a couple, now that I'm looking, there's a couple episodes I want you to tune into. You can go to my website, theoverwhelmedbrain.com, and look up When Nothing Works Out in Life. You'll find an episode that has that segment. The entire episode is called Overcoming General Unease, When Nothing Works Out in Life, and Questioning Trust in Relationships. It sounds like all of those would be helpful for you, Sandy. There's another episode, look up in the search engine, Stuck with No Way Out. So the entire episode title is Bad Luck and Great Fortune, Stuck with No Way Out, Small Lies and Big Problems, and Advice for Life. I know I put multiple titles in one title because it's different segments, but the one segment, Stuck with No Way Out, that might be a good one for you as well. But the whole point behind those episodes is to help you understand when you absolutely have no options, or at least you feel like you do, you can't see a way out, what do you do? So I think that would be very helpful for you, Sandy. And not that that's the only thing I want to tell you, but just tune into those and maybe you'll get something from that. Now, I would like to address this decision that you think you should have made differently in the past. First of all, let's just say that you married this guy. Well, let's just say you did, and you hadn't healed from all the dysfunction in your childhood. Whatever you learned in childhood, whatever was programmed and how you got that abused mind, you brought into the relationship. How do you think that would have turned out? So even if you said yes, and I think you intimated in your letter that maybe it wouldn't have turned out that great anyway, I'm here to reinforce that perception in you because I am absolutely 100% sure that if you brought that version of you into the relationship, the one who hadn't yet healed, the one who still had that abused mind, that your life, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. And I'm here to tell you right now, just from what you said, I would bet it would have been a lot worse, not only because of the abused, unhealed mind that you brought into the relationship, had you said yes, but because this guy doesn't sound like a winner at all. And he got married and he became more of that philandering thing. I'm assuming you mean cheating. If you don't mean cheating, I might be misreading this, but I'm assuming that's what it means. So let me remind you that the decision you made valued you more than any decision you could have made at that time. Because if you had gone into that relationship, that would have been like you saying, I don't value myself enough to stay out of this toxic situation. Now, I know there were other circumstances because your mom was telling you that if you marry him, you could no longer come into the house. But that was in you. I mean, that belief and that fear was in you. And had you gotten married, it would have felt like an escape from your mom. It would have felt like, oh, this is the break I need to get away from my mom. But what would happen is that you would come out of one dysfunctional situation and into probably a more dysfunctional situation. Because what you'd end up doing, and this is a total assumption on my part, but it's an educated assumption, is that you would give and receive love to a person that would take advantage of you, that would probably emotionally abuse you, that would cheat on you. You would invest your time, energy, and love and support to a person to the point where you had so much invested in it that as he treated you badly, you would always want more from him, and you wouldn't be able to get it. So believe it or not, the decision that you made, even though your mom's upbringing really messed with your head, at least you didn't end up with this person. Now, I know you didn't end up with anyone that it sounds like you could be in love with for the rest of your life. It sounds like that maybe it felt like a sacrifice, like I would rather be with someone than no one. And yes, relationships can be wonderful, and they can also be devastating. You know, I've heard from a lot of people that got into a relationship, my mom included. My mom got married when she was very young to my father, and that it only lasted a few years. And I think in her 20s, she got married to my stepfather, and that lasted 40 years. I tell you what, that 40 plus, I think it was 40 plus years, that 40 plus year relationship with my stepfather was the worst time in her life. Yes, she got wonderful children from it, and she hated every day that she was with him. She would tell me this, I hate him, I hate him. And all us kids would be like, leave him, leave him. And she wouldn't. And so, there's I talk about that in another episode, but I stopped saying leave him and just showed up for her. And I was just there to hear her vent and complain about his behavior until he finally one day left. And in her 70s, she finally got to experience what it was like to not be with someone toxic. And she also came to the conclusion that she was an idiot. I don't agree with this conclusion. This is her words, but she said she was an idiot for not making that decision sooner to leave him. And so each of us have a different perspective. Some people get into relationships and it's the worst life ever with the worst person they could find. And some people don't get into a relationship and they think it's the worst life ever because they never were with the right person or they never found the love of their life. And we all have these perspectives that we look at the other side and think the grass is greener. But in reality, we could only make the choices that we could make with the healing that we went through, with the learnings that created our foundation. And I tell you what, if you don't have a good, healthy supply of self-worth and self-esteem, you're probably going to make bad decisions for yourself. Because when you have healthy self-worth, I love myself, I value myself, and healthy self-esteem, I'm confident in myself, I know the decisions I'm making are the best ones I can make at this time. When that's healthy, when that's abundant in you, then you are attracted to and attracting the right people. But it has to be there. I mean, in almost all cases, it has to be there. And the reason is, if you're lacking in healthy self-worth and healthy self-esteem, that you're going to seek more from other people instead of feeling fulfilled in yourself and bringing a happier, fulfilled, whole person into the relationship. If you don't feel fulfilled in many ways in yourself, then you seek it from others, and that's where you develop dependencies and attachments and create codependent relationships where you want more than your partner can provide, and it becomes dysfunctional. Just like if you got into this relationship with this philandering guy, you would not have been able to come to a satisfactory, healthy place with him because he would have been getting his needs met elsewhere, and you would have been longing for your needs to be met. You would have been longing to feel worthy, and you'd be asking yourself, why isn't he making me feel worthy? Why isn't he making me feel important? Because you probably were lacking in that self-worth and self-esteem and saw this philandering guy as attractive. So I'm not blaming you for that. I'm saying that that came from your upbringing and the years of programming that your mom and maybe other people have put into your head. So I want you to know, this all really comes down to, it wasn't because you made a bad decision. In my opinion, you made the best decision you could possibly make, especially with the resources and the tools that you had available. You would not have been able to make any better decision that you made. And on top of that, you made a decision that valued you. Even if you don't see it that way, it became valuable to you so that you weren't in a relationship that continually put you down, that continually made you feel bad about yourself. Yes, you went through life probably not having the best types of relationships you could have, but that does really stem from the self-worth and self-esteem that you were never instilled with as a child and growing up. So I do have an episode on self-worth and self-esteem that I want you to look up as well at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. Just go look that up, self-worth or self-esteem in the search field, and you'll find it. So I want you to do that too. And I'm going to leave you with this final piece of advice, because right now it does feel like you have no way out. And I've already mentioned a few episodes that I want you to listen to that will really help you connect with. And two things, actually. One of them is you're not alone. I mean, where you are today, you feel like you have no friends. But I tell you what, I'm going to push this on you a little bit. If you're in Facebook, I do have the Overwhelmed Brain Empowerment Group. There's like 240 people in there right now that all support each other. When you go into that group and you say, this is what's going on in my life, you're going to get so many good responses that support and just want to see you happy and just want to see you have a better life. And, not everyone has the best answer. I don't always have the best answers. I just have my own insights and opinions, just like everyone in that group has. So if you're really feeling down and really feel like you have no friends, that's why I created that group. So, Facebook, I don't know if that's your thing or not, but it might be worth checking out. It's called the Overwhelmed Brain Empowerment Group. You can search for it in Facebook. And my last thing is, I think it's vital that at this stage of your life, that you really start connecting with yourself. Now, this might be overplayed information in a lot of ways, but I'm going to tell you what it's like. If you start connecting with yourself, you find paths to solutions that you normally wouldn't have found. And what I mean by connecting with yourself is becoming more present, becoming more connected to the now. I talk about Eckhart Tolle every now and then. If you look for his videos on YouTube, his name is Eckhart, E-C-K-H-A-R-T. His last name is T-O-L-L-E. I have a feeling that he's going to be very helpful in your journey in connecting with the present moment. And all that means is that, the present moment is when you are aware of your environment. You're aware of yourself. It's a very mixed internal, external happening for you. Like when I really become aware of the present, I see things differently. I look at things as if I never saw them before. I'm curious about how the world works. I'm curious what a tree is. It may sound silly, but I pretend I have never seen a tree before. And I look at it for the first time and go, whoa, what is that? And I'll explore it. I'll feel it. I'll wonder how it became what it became. I wonder about these things. And this is what the present moment does. It keeps you curious. It keeps you fascinated. And it keeps you connected and even grounded without having to go internal all the time. You know what internal is, right? Internal is when I have all this inner dialogue and all these thoughts and all these emotions. And when I go internal, I feel all those emotions and I feel bad. And all these thoughts are coming to my head and that makes me feel worse. And I'm just connecting with my stories and my regrets and my resentments and my anger and my sadness and my fear. Where the present moment, you step out of that and you can really be in the now. So Sandy, I really do want you to have a better life from this point on. Sure, a lot of life has passed, but it doesn't mean it's over. It means right now you can still make choices that change today and tomorrow. You can still put yourself on a better path so that you can start really connecting with a part of you that maybe you haven't experienced yet. And maybe start letting stuff go. If you still look at the past and wonder what would have worked and what wouldn't have worked, then that takes your time and energy away from what you can do today, even if you feel like you have no choice and no options. I hope this helps you. Thank you so much for sharing all this. You aren't alone. I'm thinking about you right now, and I appreciate you. We'll be right back. I tell you what, there's nothing, I mean almost nothing, that I wouldn't do for a good night's sleep. I notice when I haven't slept well because it affects how I think, what I say, and it even affects my coaching. I've had to cancel sessions in the past just because I couldn't get a good night's sleep. I can't even form sentences well when I haven't slept. In the early days of this show, I used to stay up extremely late getting all the work done for a single episode just to get it uploaded in time for Sunday morning. Fortunately, I have much better systems in place now, but those old shows required so much editing because I simply couldn't think straight. I had to fix all my speaking mistakes. Since then, I've learned something very important about sleep, that it's more difficult to access your unconscious competency when you haven't had a good night's sleep. In other words, the information you may have usually had at the tip of your tongue disappears, and you can't access it anymore when you're just too darn exhausted because you didn't get a good night's sleep. So where is this leading? I'm talking about a show, actually. It's called A Good Night's Sleep Podcast. When I heard about it, I realized I need to listen to this. You see, I'm kind of a rule follower when it comes to my health. If I read or hear good data, I'll follow it just to see if it helps me. A Good Night's Sleep Podcast has already helped me. For example, I just listened to a recent episode and it talked about caffeine. And I really appreciated hearing this because I enjoy tea a little too much. After listening to the episode on caffeine, however, I took 4 days off of it just to get it out of my system. I did have some today, but I plan on taking another few days off in between. You know, the show said I can wean off of it. So that's what I'm going to do. Doesn't mean I'm going to give it up. It just means that I'm going to have less of it because I didn't realize how much caffeine was affecting my system and my sleep. I mean, it's obvious to some people. Well, you drink caffeine, you're going to stay up. Well, it wasn't obvious to me. I thought if I drank it early enough, then I'd be okay, but that didn't work for me. I want you to tune into this show because just that little thing about caffeine was a huge piece of information that I needed, and I know that you're going to hear something that you need, especially if you are experiencing any lack of really deep or comfortable sleep. You'll hear from leading sleep experts in the military health system about how to improve your sleep habits, and you'll learn about sleep disorders and nightmares and sleep treatments and more. As you know, good sleep is essential for our physical and emotional health. Now, believe it or not, A Good Night's Sleep podcast was created with the military community in mind, but it is absolutely friendly for everyone so that you can benefit from a better night's sleep too. Check them out. Open your favorite podcast player and look for A Better Night's Sleep, and make sure to subscribe and get every new episode that comes out. If you don't have a podcast player, open your favorite internet search engine and it'll come right up when you search for A Better Night's Sleep podcast. I'm looking forward to the next one myself. Now go listen to it and get a great night's sleep. All right, welcome back. Let's get to our next email and see what we can do with this one. Hi, Paul. I dated a man for just shy of a year. It was not my longest relationship, but it was definitely the first one I seriously saw a future in. We connected immediately from the first date and had so much in common. We both had similar roles at our job, and we were both raised in well-off and loving Catholic families. So we had a lot of shared life experiences and interests. Both of our parents have been happily married for over 30 years. He initiated conversations early on about marriage and children to make sure that we were on the same page about the important things, and I thought that we were. I also thought that I was with someone who was very serious about me. It just seemed to be falling into place, and I saw our lives and families fitting together seamlessly. But a little over a week ago, I saw a dating app on his phone. I wasn't snooping, I just happened to see it as he was sitting next to me using his phone. I asked him about it, and he seemed genuine when he said he simply forgot to delete it. He wasn't defensive at all. I wanted to trust him, but it wasn't sitting right with me. The next day I confronted him and I told him I knew he was lying. He admitted that he was. He said that he wasn't interested in other people or trying to meet anyone, but that he was addicted to the entertainment that it brought him. It felt like a game to him. He admitted to doing the same thing in his last serious relationship, but that his ex, who he's still friends with, didn't find out. Because of the lying, this was a deal breaker for me, so I broke up with him. It was on the phone while he was at work. I was so angry and uncomfortable that I just wanted to get off the phone as quickly as possible. My main issues are reconciling the thoughts that I could be with someone who seemed so caring, attentive, and invested in a future with me with someone who would choose the attention and validation of strange women online over a real person who loved him. Only 24 hours before, we were talking about taking a trip to Europe together this summer, so the breakup was incredibly sudden and unexpected. I know I deserve better, but there's still a small part of me that hopes he'll realize that he made a mistake and want to change. We haven't spoken since and have deleted each other from all social media. Because our last conversation was so short, I have a lot of things I didn't get to say that I wish I had. I'm concerned about not finding someone else I connect with like that, and that I'll have some serious trust issues going forward. Feel free to read this on your podcast if you wish, as I've met quite a few other people my age, both men and women, who have confronted this problem because we use dating apps so frequently. All right, I'm going to call you Mary. Mary, thank you so much for writing that. First of all, just like the last segment, I'm so glad that you valued yourself enough to make the decision to get out of the relationship. This is one of those relationship criteria that some people will set up and say, absolutely, you should not have any type of connection with women on a dating app in this relationship. I mean, you shouldn't even have to set up that kind of criteria, but obviously that goes over the line for most people. So I am proud of you for valuing yourself or standing up for yourself and say, no way, I'm not going to have this in my relationship, especially because of the lying. I think that's the main point, is that it wasn't the act. It was that he could lie to you. He could literally look you in the face and seem genuine and lie. That happens in a lot of relationships where someone can just easily lie about, usually affairs. They can lie about the affair. It's good to know that people are really good, unfortunately, at lying, especially when they want to keep doing what they're doing. This is why it's so vital to have some of the hard conversations that you might not want to have. Like, are you ever interested in other people? And actually have the conversations as if it wouldn't bother you if they said yes. Those are the kinds of conversations that I have introduced into my relationships over the years. We would talk about infidelity. I would say things like, hey, if I was ever sick for months, would you go find someone else? And, I would have these conversations. And then when she said, of course not, I would never find anyone else. I would wait for you. I would say things like, what? Are you crazy? Why wouldn't you? I wasn't really trying to manipulate, but I wanted to know what she would do. And I really wanted to know the truth. And then when the truth comes out, I would know better where they stood. I'm not saying that you should do this. I'm not saying that you have to manipulate a conversation in order to get them to admit something that you can go, aha, that's a problem. I'm not going to live with that. I'm saying that you have these conversations as early as possible and bring everything out on the table. Do everything you can to be as open as possible and have conversations that are very real. They're very real. I think what happens is that we get so dependent on someone that we hope they do nothing else that goes outside the values and boundaries of the relationship, that they don't feel free to share their real thoughts and desires. Because if they do, then you'd probably get up and leave them, or you'd do this or you'd do that. I'm not saying this about you, Mary. I'm saying that in early on in the relationship, if you're able to have these types of conversations and be really open about this stuff, then often this can come up sooner. Now, often, at the same time, it doesn't. Often, you're with someone that you really have faith in, you really trust, you really care about. And with all the background stuff that it matches and, a loving, Irish Catholic family, you'd think that honesty and integrity would be all a part of the type of relationship that you're having. But then you find out there's a lie. And that's a problem. And you don't even know if he can lie about that, then why wouldn't he lie and say that it was just entertainment? Because maybe a week later you find out, it's more than entertainment. So I get it. I totally get that you could be in a space of, I don't know if I'm going to have trust issues going forward. I don't know if I'm ever going to find someone else that I connect with like that. Well, let me tell you this. If this is part of that connection, you don't want to find someone else like that. I get it. You want to find the good stuff. If you can find someone that you can connect with in all the ways that it felt good with your ex, great. But you don't want to get the bad stuff along with it. So my first thought on this is that you absolutely will find someone else you connect with. I don't care. People think that they'll never find someone else. And I hear about this over and over and over again. And I'm going to set the record straight here, is that when you have been in relationships, that means you are capable of finding people to be in a relationship with. That's the first hurdle a lot of the time. Okay, I know I'm capable of being in a relationship. And then you look in the past and go, yes, but every one of them was bad for me, or every one of them was a problem, or that one person got away, like in the last segment. Yet, that's one person out of billions. And then the argument is, yes, but I only have a limited supply, and everyone my age is married, and so on and so on and so forth. A lot of stories and excuses that we tell ourselves. I'm not putting you down for that. I'm just saying I've done it. We've all done it. There's never going to be anyone for me ever again like her or like him. And just to set the record straight, after having been through, what have I been through? 6, 7 really great, really long-term relationships. After each one, I knew, quote, knew, I would never find anyone like her again. I would never be as happy as I was with her again. I would never be this. I would never be that. Every single one of them, I felt like that. It's like our brain goes there, and it's like torture. Our brain is torturing us, saying, the way you felt in that relationship, you'll never feel again. You'll never find someone like that. You'll never find someone that laughs at your jokes like that. You'll never find someone that can connect with you like that. You'll never find someone that really knows you as much as he or she did. That's what our brain does. So I've come to learn at the ripe, old, or young age, however you look at it, age of 48, that that's simply not true. It's just an untrue statement that we tell ourselves. I'll never find anyone again. It's just untrue. Or I'll never find anyone like that again. I always look at it this way. Thank God I'll never find anyone like that again because it failed. I can look at that failure and say there's a lot of success in that failure because I learned so much. But thank God I'm not going to find anyone like that again. Yeah, but all the good stuff. I want all the good stuff. Yes, that's what we take with us into the next relationship. We understand ourselves and how we want to feel and what we do and we don't want. We understand more about boundaries, more about the relationship values, more about what we value. And we bring it into the next relationship. And then we discover a new way of being in a new relationship and discover more about ourselves that we really didn't know was there. I discovered so much stuff about myself in every new relationship that thankfully I got into the new relationship so I could discover that stuff. I'm being a little harsh, I know, but I want to set the record straight that as soon as you say, I'll never be in a relationship again, I just want you to tell your brain, screw you, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're telling me this. I don't know why you're telling me this, but you're telling me this for some purpose. There's some purpose behind it. I don't know if it's a fight or flight primal level thing that we had to learn when we were cavemen, like once we lose our partner, we'll never get anyone else, so we need to be angry. Maybe that's what helped us be angry, so that we could be in survival mode. And if we're in survival mode, we take care of ourselves and we become empowered and go hunting and come home from the hunt and still angry. And then someone shows up and it softens our heart. But it's a good thing we became angry to take care of ourselves instead of just stuffing ourselves away in a hole, not eating, becoming depressed. And maybe that's what we've lost over the years. Maybe we aren't getting angry enough to take care of ourselves and tell someone that no way are you defining me anymore. No way are you defining my worth. No way are you defining how lovable I am, how significant I am, how worthy I am, how good I am. There's no way. So yeah, get angry. You know what? I'll never have that kind of love again. All right, get angry. getting angry means taking care of yourself, damn it, because no one else is going to do it. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that that might be a healthier perspective for you to snap into instead of feeling down, like it's never going to happen again, putting yourself in a hole, not eating, feeling depressed, so on and so forth. I'm not saying that's where you are, Mary, and I'm not really pointing all of this at you. I'm pointing it to anyone that feels like I'll never find the love of my life again, I'll never find so-and-so again. You know, if those thoughts come up for you, get angry and take care of yourself then. Take care of yourself, because this is where I would go, because no one else is going to do it, damn it. I mean, that's how I felt when I was in corporate. Somebody kept telling me that I was going to have a full-time position at this wonderful job at this hospital, and I was going to be taken care of, and, you know, I was a subcontractor. I wasn't hired on as a full-time employee yet. So month after month after month, up to a year went by, and they kept promising me they were going to give me this full-time job. And so I finally cornered one of the managers, and I'm like, you know, when is this full-time position going to be available? Because this project's almost over. And he said, well, you know, just keep an eye on the job boards. We'll see what happens. And I was like, what? I'm thinking in my mind, well, why would you say that to me after all this whole year of telling me that I'm going to have a permanent position here? You know what that did? You know what that bad news in that perfect job that I would never have again, this perfect opportunity, that's what it felt like. I'll never have that kind of job again. I'll never have this perfect opportunity again. That got me angry. That got me, well, I was sad. For the first 2 days, I was sad. I was moping. But after the third day, I was just like, you know what? Damn it, I'm so sick of being defined by someone else. I'm so sick of someone else holding the reins for my life. I need to do something on my own. I need to take care of myself. So this is where this is coming from. I've learned that when you rely on someone else to define who you are and shape who you become, instead of really taking the reins of your own life and taking care of yourself and treating yourself as your best damn friend, as your best damn lover, treating yourself like that to prove that you are worthy, that you are important, that you are significant, and you are definitely lovable. Doing that brings the best version of you into the world so that you can get a relationship that has all the same aspects. When you bring that version of you into a relationship, you see the red flags. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. You see it ahead of time. You have boundaries that you can see being violated or not being violated. You're just more aware. And the person you're with is going to have very similar qualities, because you'll find it difficult to be with someone who hasn't reached a certain level in their life either. The only reason I'm telling you all this, Mary, is that sometimes our brain can trick us and say things like, we'll never find that type of love again. We'll never find a person that allows us to feel that way again. And most of the time that's true, because what happens when we get into a new relationship, we feel different things. We learn new things about ourselves. We experience different things. It opens up pathways and doorways to parts of us that maybe were locked away or were blocked by old dysfunctions from our upbringing or old programming from other people. Boy, when those doors open and a different part of us is exposed to the world and we can connect with ourselves in a different way, we'll feel different, we'll feel lighter, we'll feel as if maybe our brain wasn't right. Like I remember after my 13-year relationship ended, I was at the bottom. I was depressed. I was out. I could not function. And 6 months after that relationship, I finally started going, well, maybe I can find someone else to make me happy. Not a good plan. Finding someone else to make you happy, not a good plan. It's always best to bring happiness into the relationship, not try to suck it out of someone else. But what I did was I went online to a service, and I was looking for someone who reminded me of my ex. Someone with the same hair, someone with the same height, someone with the same look. And that's what my criteria was, because that's what my criteria for a great relationship was. And I searched and searched, and I couldn't find someone. I actually found someone locally that I don't know how to say it. This was in my 30s. I started hitting on her. And she had no interest, but she reminded me of my ex. So I had this perception of what a perfect person or a perfect relationship, or at least a great relationship should be. And here I am trying to make it work with someone just because they remind me of my ex. I'm sure a lot of us have done this. And eventually I ended up with someone who was nothing like my ex. Nothing. Different hair, different size, different shape, different everything. And I started dating her. And it was so different. I didn't think I'd like it, but it was so different that I liked it. This happens. Things, when we're exposed to things that are just so different, I was able to access parts of myself I didn't know about. She taught me things about myself that I would never have learned in my first relationship. She taught me about boundaries. She taught me about expressing yourself, even at the cost of hurting the other person, just because it's truthful. These are the things that we get from new relationships. So I've harped on anyone who's ever had the thought that they'll never find someone else again enough. So I'm going to shift into this dating app thing, because that was your main question. So I'm sorry if I took so much time on this other stuff, but I really wanted you to understand that the brain can trick us, and just to be aware of that. As far as dating apps, like you said, there are a few people your age, both men and women, who have confronted this problem with dating apps, and we use dating apps so frequently. Well, let me say this. I think what you're implying is that dating apps make it easier to connect with other people, whether you're married or not. And, this is the way the world works today. Absolutely. We have social media that we can reach out to old flames. We've had email for a while, but email wasn't a way to search for those old flames or new flames. We have more opportunity than ever with dating apps. And it really is a problem. I mean, dating apps are a problem as much as they are a solution. Because here we are saying that everyone has access to open the door to anything. And this is what the internet has brought us. The ability to open the door to any information, any person, almost any person, anytime we want. So what does that mean? The only thing I can say about that is A, it's not going away. If anything, it'll get easier and easier, like it has, to reach out to anyone anytime. So what that means for relationships is that the more, like I was saying earlier, the more honest you are with each other, the more open you are with each other, and the more you work on yourself and understand yourself and improve yourself and work on your self-worth, work on your self-esteem, the more likely you're going to attract someone who is in the same ballpark as you. Because what happens is the level of dysfunction that you're currently at today is what you attract. In other words, you will always attract the level of dysfunction that you're at. I don't know how to say that any better, but the idea is what you bring into the relationship is what you get from the relationship. This is why it's so important to bring the healthiest, most empowered, most honest, most vulnerable you into a relationship so that you attract the same thing and don't attract your needs. Because that's what gets us, is that we meet someone who meets our needs because we haven't met them fully ourselves. And so when that person meets our needs, we grow an attachment, we grow a dependence, and we start to rely on them to feed us love and worth and happiness. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because with good people, it's a great thing. But with the wrong people, when they become our supply, the wrong people can take advantage of us and lie and do bad things to really hurt us. And when we're hurt, what kind of foundation do we land on? In other words, when you break up with someone, how strong is your self-worth? How strong is your self-esteem? How strong is your foundation, your emotional core? When all goes haywire and you fall, what are you falling on? How are you able to get up? You're able to get up because you've taken the time to connect with yourself. Just like I was saying in the last segment, connect with yourself, know who you are, improve where you can, and work on that self-worth, work on that self-esteem. I've had episodes on this, like I said before. Just, look those up on my website, theoverwhelmedbrain.com, because those are such vital foundational components of who you are. And when you work on those things, you always, almost always, attract a better partner in life, better friends, better relationships, and you can also see toxic behavior a lot easier. Because I tell you what, as you start to show up more honestly and more observant of the behavior of others, and you start honoring yourself more and more, you start to recognize behavior that is not acceptable, that is toxic, that is bad for you. Honoring yourself really helps you define what's good and what's bad, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable to you. When you define that, you start to see much more clearly what's not good for you. And these little signals will come out. Mary, I'm wondering if you saw any little signals in your relationship besides finding that app on his phone. I wonder if you can look back now and go, there was this one thing that I didn't like, but I didn't say anything about it because I didn't think it was that important. I wonder. Maybe you didn't, but a lot of people do. When people have any type of affair, emotional or physical, and then there's a breakup, the partner of the cheater can look back and go, before the cheating started or as the cheating was happening, I did notice things, but I didn't necessarily talk to my partner about it. I didn't necessarily express my concerns about it. This is your opportunity to be hyper aware of what's going on in the relationship, in your next relationship or any relationship that you develop, so that going forward you will address them and help you reinforce the trust that you may not have. Because like you said, I'm not sure if I'm going to have trust issues. At first you will, but it will change. Because let me tell you where I went. For a long time, every time I got into a new relationship, my partner would ask me, you've had these breakups in the past. Aren't you worried that I'm going to leave you too? Because that's what happened, is that every girl I've been with has left me. That's been the story of my life. Every single girl that I've been with has left me. And so I'll get into a new relationship and she'll ask me, well, aren't you afraid that I'm going to leave you too? And I said, if I spend any time worrying about you leaving me, I'll never enjoy the relationship for what it is. And she was like, well, what do you mean? Don't you think about the future? Don't you think about what you're investing? We'd have these hard conversations, or at least deep conversations. They would be real. Like, aren't you afraid that I'm going to leave you? And I'd be like, I'm not afraid until you leave me. And she would say, what do you mean? And I would reply, I want to enjoy the day I have with you. I want to plan ahead, knowing that it's going to work out and betting on that it will work out. Because, damn it, life is too short betting on things that may not work out. I would rather bet on things that I believe will work out and then stay in that belief until proven otherwise. So I've really come to connect with present moment thinking and beliefs that serve me until they no longer apply. For example, I'm with someone and we plan ahead and we're together for years, and then one day it starts to get a little sour, and then maybe I might fear it then. But until it's sour, it's not. Until it's a problem, it's not. Until there's reason to suspect, there's not. So this is how I live my life. This is how I get into relationships and am able to enjoy every single minute I have with the person, knowing it is true, knowing that she could leave me any day. But today's not that day. And I'm going to enjoy it because, if I'm dead in a week, at least I've enjoyed this week to the fullest. That may be Pollyanna thinking. That may be like a little denial. I don't know. But if I'm enjoying the day and I'm enjoying the relationship and I don't dwell on the what ifs, then maybe I can enjoy the rest of my life that way as well. Because I tell you what, after a 13-year relationship, I enjoyed 11 and a half, maybe about that much, 11 and a half years. But had I thought every day that she might leave me, then every day I would have worry. And every day I would have this anxiety. And every day I would think, when's it going to happen? And then I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. So this is my own personal viewpoint. It may or may not work for you, but it works really good for me. And I really like it because I don't miss a moment. Doesn't mean I dote on her 24 hours a day. It just means I feel confident. I have reinforced the trust that I have in the relationship until it's time not to trust. And I've just lived my life like that. So, Mary, I don't know if I've really been able to help you through this. I'm glad you brought up the dating apps. There's no way around it. It's going to happen. We have access to everyone and everything now. So, my perspective is that the more you show up as a better and better version of you, then the more high quality people will gravitate into your life, or you'll attract those people, or whatever. You're going to meet more and more right people. And unfortunately, there are people out there that can be very dubious, very unscrupulous, very tricky and manipulative. So when that happens, we learn something new, we fall down, we get back up, and we see the signs. And I have plenty of episodes on manipulative people, emotional abuse, and other things that often throw us off because they're subtle. They're little subtle signs that we miss. So you may want to tune into that too. Mary, thank you so much for this. I really hope your life goes better and everything works out for you. I have a feeling you're going to be fine. Thank you so much again. Thanks for listening to another episode. We'll be right back with some more thank yous, and we'll close the show with my final words after this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Overwhelmed Brain. I'm so glad you tuned in. I want to thank our sponsor, A Better Night's Sleep Podcast. Search for it in your favorite podcast player or internet search engine and start getting the best night's sleep you deserve. A Better Night's Sleep Podcast, lots to learn. Tune in today. I want to thank the patron members for supporting the show over at patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. I just released a private patron episode. I think it's episode number 76 in the Patreon program. It was from someone who interviewed me on self-mastery. And along with that interview, I offered my own thoughts on accessing inner wisdom and what it means to really get that knowledge out of your unconscious mind so that you can move forward with things you want to do in your life and have the answers to do it. So that's a great episode. If you're in the Patreon program, tune into it. Just released it. If you're not in the Patreon program, like I said, I have about 76 episodes in there. I have quite a few workbooks, including the full version of my The Overwhelmed Brain Personal Growth for Critical Thinkers book. I have it as a PDF in the workbooks section, and other workbooks, and even a few training videos in there as well. And there's an option to join the e-coaching program too. So those of you on the e-coaching program, I love connecting with you through email. Absolutely write to me anytime. But if you want to join the Patreon program to get access to all that content and or the e-coaching program, visit patron.theoverwhelmedbrain.com. Thank you so much, existing Patreon members. Your support makes a huge difference. And now is a good time to mention the Mean Workbook, the workbook that gives you your manipulation and emotional abuse number. You know, I probably could have sent this workbook to the last two people in the last two segments who went through these relationship issues, because they probably would have had some insights to their relationship had they known it ahead of time. It's very handy to know what's going on in your relationship so that you aren't so blindsided when something happens. So the Mean Workbook helps you pinpoint exactly what might be happening in your relationship as far as manipulation and emotional abuse. It's so much more than that, though. It's got a 200-point assessment that gives you a score, what I call the mean number, and it tells you exactly where you stand in the relationship and where it could go, and how to either work through the problems with your partner or get out of the problems. There's all kinds of resources in there, including 3 audio interviews I did with professionals and survivors of emotionally abusive relationships, including one with my girlfriend who survived quite an abusive marriage. So check it out. Go to loveandabuse.com to learn more about it. And finally, I want to thank Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in The Overwhelmed Brain. Oh, I almost forgot. Thank you to you if you've clicked on the Amazon button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. That's another way to support the show. You don't have to send me anything. If you click on the Amazon button, it takes you to Amazon, and then anything you buy on there, Amazon shares with us pennies on the dollar for what you buy. And it's very helpful. So thank you to you if you use the Amazon button at theoverwhelmedbrain.com. And I want to close the show by reiterating what valuing yourself means and how to do it. You see, I picture a funnel. If you put a funnel with the broad side down on a counter, you start at the top with this really tiny entry point. This tiny entry point could be like one thought or one question or one decision that you're making in a moment of life. And this one decision is filtered through the funnel. So I picture this filter that sits on top of the funnel. And the filter is your filtering system, your values. So what happens is you're faced with a decision. Well, should I tell my mom that what she said disrespected me? I mean, there's a deep decision right there. And if you have this filter on and it's going through this filter, and that filter asks the question, is my decision in alignment with my values? Or more specifically, will saying or doing what I'm about to do value myself or devalue myself? Then whatever decision you make from there spreads out into your world. So that's how I see it. Like a decision comes in through the top, through the filter, and whatever decision you make spreads out into your world. That's why the funnel gets wider and wider. So that's how I see it. Maybe it's a visualization you can relate to, I don't know, but that's what I use. And the smallest part of that funnel are my values, and I always evaluate the decisions I make with those values. So this is why I like a top-level value of valuing myself. I mean, that could mean anything. How do you value yourself? Well, let's just say that you came to a decision to say something like I said earlier, like, my mom just disrespected me. What should I do? What should I say? If I say, hey, mom, you disrespected me, I don't appreciate that, or dad or whoever, then is that valuing myself? My answer is yes. But what if I say nothing? Or what if I just ignored it or pretended I didn't hear it? Does that value or devalue myself? And if I choose to do it, what spreads out into my world? That's how I look at these things, is that every decision that we make that goes through the filter on the top of the funnel spreads out into the rest of our life. And the decisions that we make, they have this domino effect of one decision leads to another, decision leads to another. It may not be that way with every decision, but with a lot of decisions in our life, if I choose to say yes when I really mean no, where else does that go in my life? That spreads outward like the funnel and spreads to this person and that event and that situation and my job and my relationship. And I don't like when that happens. I don't like that compound effect, that exponentially multiplying effect that it has in my life. It's hard to see it that way in the decision, but this is what happens. It's like the first lie you tell to your partner. Once you get past that first lie, it spreads and it's easier to tell more and more lies. And then suddenly you're lying like it's no problem and you have no ill will about it. You have no bad feelings about it because you allowed the first lie to get through your filter. I mean, this is if you're lying to your partner, but it works the same way the other way too. What if they lied to you and you allowed it through that filter? And now they lie again. And since you've already spread that out into the rest of your relationship or the rest of your life, and you became tolerant of that bad behavior, the filter has less and less effect and doesn't even work after a while. So you got to catch these things as soon as they happen. As soon as a toxic element is introduced, you got to catch it. I'm not saying you have to act on every single thing that happens and just become belligerent and bold. And I mean, it might work. You probably have the perfect life if you just caught everything and held everyone up to certain standards, but, might be annoying to some people too. But you do have to keep score. You have to know, oh, this person lies. So from this point on, I really can't trust them. I really can't let them come closer to me. I have to keep them at a distance. And this person has betrayed me, so I got to keep them at a distance because my filter works. When your filter works, you take action to take care of yourself. You protect yourself. So I want you to check in with that filter. The filter that is most important is, do I value myself? I mean, that could be your question for your filter. Is what I'm about to do or say valuing me? Or is it valuing them? I mean, it could be valuing them, and that's okay as long as it doesn't devalue you. So this can bring up some very tough decisions in life. If it doesn't value you, do you do it? If it devalues you, do you still do it? If it could go either way, then what? I mean, there's a tough decision, but you find out. You make the decision anyway. Then you find out if it devalues you, and then you know how to make the decision next time. There's all kinds of facets to this that we could explore, but I really like the funnel concept, that whatever comes through that filter spreads and permeates into the rest of my life in different areas of life. And then I become responsible for what happens to me in life because of the decisions that I make. And we all know, we make a decision in the past that permeates to the rest of our life. And sometimes it seems like the decisions that we make screwed up our entire life. I never see it that way. I've made decisions that I regret, that I wish I hadn't made, but every single day is an opportunity to make a better decision, to make the right decision, to make a decision that honors me, that values me, that makes me more whole, more happy, more peaceful. Every day is a decision to step in that direction. I want you to keep stepping in the right direction. I want you to make sure that your filter works so that every decision you make leads to better results that can permeate your life too. So, what do? You keep your mind open. This allows you to step into your power and be firm in those decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing.